The COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports, in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.
Top pocket goal!
It's what dreams are made of.
They are going to the World Cup Finals!
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the COYGIG Podcast. We have no Emma Byrne with us this week, but I am joined by Captain Karen Duggan, who has come fresh off another weekend of football action, and she is delighted, she is happy, she is ready to go for the podcast, aren't you, Karen?
Yes, whatever you say. I know, I am. I'm ready. I'm not overly happy about the WSL results, but I'm happy about the WNL results, so I'll be half happy going into this pod.
Yeah, you guys had a nice little 1-0 win, and also obviously the COYGIG derby is coming up this weekend. You keep coming down to Sligo whenever I'm not there and when I can't make it, and it really upsets me because I was going to come this
Kathleen. It's not on purpose, I swear.
I was going to be out west, but I'm at a wedding, so sadly I will not be over.
That sounds enjoyable, especially if the weather's going to be like it was with the last week. I mean, up in the mountains. I know the showgrounds is like one of the prettiest venues you can play in with the mountains overlooking it, but it also can be cold. So
yeah,
something to look forward to.
Round.
Yeah, but we got a nice, do you know what? We got a nice poxy win at the weekend. They don't happen.
I was going to ask, how are you feeling after that? I would have thought you would have, there seemed to be a lot of relief around the P-Mount camp. I feel like you guys would have expected a few more than just that one goal past DLR.
Yeah, and you know what? There were patches that we played really well and we hit the bar, I think, 2 or 3 times. But I actually think DLR played really well, defensively, particularly. Like, they did frustrate us a lot. But we kept at it, which again was a positive sign. We're all about the positivity these days, Kathleen, you know. So yeah, really, really happy. Like I said, it was a poxy goal, but I think we probably deserved it based on how we played and how we kept at it. Didn't give up. Subs made a difference again. So again, positive, especially when everyone around us is still kind of winning. There hasn't been any shocks yet, so we didn't want to be the first.
Yeah, no, for anyone who missed the results over the weekend, Shelburne got a 2-0 win over Bows. P-Mount, as I said, beat DLR 1-0. Wexford Sligo 3-1, boo. Galway beat Cork 1-0, and then Shamrock Rovers got kind of the big win that I think a lot of people expected would come fairly early on for them. They beat Treaty United 6-0, so there was a lot of goals on that side. I did quite enjoy Bows having the little Dublin bus
that's
bring out the ball. I was like,
if that thing comes out when I'm playing, I don't know if I'll be able to handle it. It's hilarious.
Imagine you just like booting it off the pitch or something.
Just like, no, I can't cope with it. But fair play. I mean, Bows, in terms of the way they promote things and even the way they've set up their dugouts with the bus stop and everything, like it's really, really good. But yeah, that little thing might be too much for me.
Oh, like it's all incredibly naff, but also you think of like the big European games or like the World Cup games that used to have like the little car, you know, the little Volvo one that drove out, and that like caught so many people's attention on social media, and even like people who may not have been that invested in football were like, look at the little gay car, it's great. So I feel like I saw so many people who definitely don't follow the league being like, why is there a Dublin bus, like a mini Dublin bus bringing the ball?
Why?
And where can I get one? It was also funny because it was like kind of a chaotic game as well at times. So I think it just added to the general strangeness of the whole situation.
Yeah. I can't wait to give you a first-hand account of how it works.
I just can't wait to. I think I'd have to come and just see that match purely just to see your reaction to the little bus more than actually wanting to see you play. I think it would be more entertaining in the long term.
I think so.
Great podcast fodder as well, which is all that we ever really need. You got yourself in a bit of trouble with the Irish management over your column during the week, which, if anyone doesn't know, Karen now also writes for the Irish Times because she is, you know, the forefront voice and face of Irish football criticism at the moment. But your column was put to, and in fairness, the thing that got me about this, right? So you said in your column basically what we have said on the podcast multiple times over. It wasn't anything particularly new, and Vera Pauw was asked about it at a Sky event last week, and she she did the classic Vera thing where she started going like really deep into like breaking down tactics and like overly long explanation instead of just being a bit like, I don't really care, you know? She said that it was disappointing, that, she doesn't agree with when you said that Denise and Katie being too far away from each other. And then she basically explained football to a crowd of people who already understand football. I don't know if that's what you took from it either.
Yeah, look, I mean, I thought it was interesting the fact that she had even read it and cared,
Clearly
to be honest.
Listen to the podcast, but that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, really go to your first-hand information here. Yeah, I thought it was interesting that she read it, first of all, because I know there's been other articles or things that have come out that she hasn't read. But it wasn't a criticism of Vera. I mean, Vera is the manager that has gotten us to a World Cup, and I think that that's phenomenal. Like, no matter what way you look at it, I'm just saying that we have a group of players now that I think we can get even more out of, which is a positive thing, I would say. So in terms of, it's not a criticism, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to say, look at what we've done. But isn't it a good thing that we're kind of saying, oh, there's more to this? And she didn't reference the thing that probably would have like stuck out, which is the bringing in foreign-based players. Like, that wasn't referenced. It was literally just this tiny tactical element. And like you say, it's up to Vera to put out the team the way that she sees fit. And she's going to do that no matter what. So I didn't really think there was a need to go into the depth that she went to defend it. But again, I did an article, she responded, it's part of the game, I guess. But yeah, I didn't mind it either way.
Yeah. Well, it's also, like, as you say, I suppose it's good to know that she is reading and she is interested in these things. And like you said, that's what I found strange, is that you were just kind of saying, why don't we try this? Or like, why are we sticking with this when we do have
I don't know what was disappointing about it. It's analysis of at the end of the day, it shouldn't impact in any way, but I do think that like it's good to have different options, and there's certainly different ways that we can play, and that was just pointing those out.
Yeah, and it was just, as you say, the phrasing was strange. Like, it's disappointing to hear that from a retired player. Like, of all people, you're probably one of the ones that are like is most entitled to have an opinion, because you've actually been in the setup and like you've played international football and you still play football. Whereas, like, I don't know, if I have an opinion, yes, I can do it as someone who like watches a lot of football and has followed the team for a long time, but also like you are literally the expert. So it just was very strange to me that she took quite such ire at what you'd said. But I suppose that also shows, as a journalist and pundit, that you're doing your job quite well. So
I don't know. I didn't write it with that in mind. Again, it was just a kind of, can we challenge ourselves thing, because the five at the back and the low block, that was something that was there, like you say, when I was playing, but in every other facet of the girls in the group, and how professional it's gone, and how every camp we hear they're improving. Right, let's challenge ourselves to do something a little bit different to what we know we've been able to do since maybe 2017, 2018. And it's been brilliant, and it's been effective, and it's got us to a World Cup. I'm not saying go away from it. I'm just saying, can we place the exact same players in the team in a way that we can retain possession a little bit more? Small.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to this week's column and Vera's response to that as well.
No column this week, actually. No column. I needed a break. Not used to the attention.
You just start it as like a weekly segment, Karen versus Vera.
No, thank you.
The stardom has got too much for you already. And then we're waiting further updates on it, but just if anyone missed it over the weekend, Ruesha Littlejohn had a fairly serious gash to her knee, which looked quite deep. So hopefully that doesn't keep her out for too long, but it did look like she had to have a fair bit of medical treatment on it. She was in the hospital and got out. Well, I don't know if she got out, but she came the other side of any treatment today. So Vera and the rest of us will all be watching on, hoping that that's not too serious and doesn't keep her out for
yeah, she's been really unfortunate with injuries in the last year or so, and she's definitely someone that we want to keep fit, because I think she's a really good option in the centre for games where you will want to keep the ball and things like that. Particularly, I'll be looking at the Nigeria game. I think she'd do a really good job in that. So hopefully this is just like a superficial, but I guess we'll wait to to hear the prognosis.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the picture is still up on her Instagram story. I presume it's probably gone by now, but it was fairly grim. Not the sort of one that you want to look at over your cornflakes or anything in the morning. Coming up next, we have Emma Carroll with her team of the week, and then later on in the show, we will be doing our classic WSL analysis after what was a very entertaining weekend. The COYGIG podcast on OTB Sports is brought to you by Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. Now we are joined by Emma Carroll with her team of the week, which I heard earlier today there was a little bit of trouble with some positioning of players. So I'm eager to hear what you have in store for us, Emma.
Yeah, you could say that. I got creative. I'll go through the team first. It's kind of a 3-4-3, which could be a 2-5-3, the way players played this weekend. I went Leipzig in goal. Buchanan, Williamson and Koya Visto at the back, McCabe, Volti, Kearns and Ford in the midfield, and then Stengel, Kerr and Shaw up front. So it's quite an attacking team.
Just a little bit attacking, nothing. I mean, even Leah Williamson, technically, she was in midfield, obviously.
We'll call that out straight away. Like, the whole commentary was about the fact that she was covering in midfield and you've still plonked her centre back, but that's fine.
I was like, well, I put McCabe back as well and be like, just make it a little bit more of a normal looking team. But yeah, Williamson was brilliant in midfield. But I also thought McCabe and Ford were excellent for Arsenal, and Volti as well.
Yeah,
wanted
and
to get them all in there.
Probably could have gone in there as well, to be fair. But a lot to do with how good Arsenal were, but also a lot to do with how unimpressive Reading were.
Yeah, not they're struggling. Like, let's be honest. And then Liverpool had a really good performance as well. So I thought Missy Kearns was excellent. So I wanted her to go in there. And then Katie Stengel held the line. Probably should have scored in the dying minutes as well to really bury the game.
But I was impressed with how she carried the ball and took the game to Spurs as well. So yeah, it's good to see Liverpool getting kind of just rewards for their efforts. Kerr, I mean, that was.
And I haven't even put Lauren James in there either for the pass.
Yeah, but to be fair, I don't mind you not having more attacking Chelsea players in, because they didn't dominate possession really. Like, I think it speaks volumes that you've put Buchanan in as opposed to another attacker from Chelsea.
Yeah, I thought she contained Russo. I think of the battle between the two of them, I think she came out on top.
Reckless, probably should have given a penalty away.
She's done that a couple of times as well in recent games. I don't know. I expected a lot more from her when she came to the WSL. Yeah. Like, she's such a good player, but it just feels like she hasn't been able to settle it. Yeah,
I'm still not overly convinced. But yeah, she did a good job. I mean, between herself and Millie Bright, they handled Russo pretty well. I thought they were aggressive in the challenge. I thought she was probably unlucky that a few of the times they came through the back of her enough to get a couple frees. But again, that's probably my bias kicking in a little bit there. But yeah, kind of agree with a lot of it. Although, again, sometimes I enjoy watching Aston Villa, and I thought Kirsty Hansen, she's very good. 2 assists.
I had her down as one of the players that I would possibly add in.
Yeah, so 2 assists, and again from two good goals as well. But yeah, I mean, you can't really fault the midfield. Katie won herself a nice little pen again. It's going to become a weekly thing, is it?
She's getting good at that, isn't she? Yeah. I think she just needs to pull back a little bit, because, you know, we don't want to highlight it too much for the World Cup. She can be quite clever. Yeah. Well done. It works. Hold off.
Please don't do it anymore. Thank you.
Hold off. Yeah.
Also think it's worth mentioning your goalkeeper, because she's been very good. Leipzig from Leicester. I mean, they got a point. They're still bottom of the table, but again, encouraging signs when you look at the teams above them. I'm just trying to look at the table here now.
Yeah, very important point. And they play Spurs tomorrow night.
2 points between them and Spurs. Spurs haven't won in They've lost the last 5 on the trot anyway. Reading again, not looking hugely impressive. They've 10 points, but Leicester have a game on hand in them, so they're definitely going to be dragged back into that battle. And if Leipzig keeps playing the way she's playing, they pick up just 1 point here and there, it actually could make such a difference.
Speaking of Leicester, another player I thought that was quite good was Ruby Mace, just in terms of like running that midfield. I think I saw a stat that she won the ball back 24 times between like tackles, interceptions, random recoveries during the game.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah. And like for such a young player as well, I think like she's really come on the last couple of games, especially. I think like with whatever this resurgence is that Leicester are having, she's definitely been one of the players that's been quite impressive. She's on loan there from City, is she?
Yeah, she's a good player. Yeah, and Everton were piling on the pressure in the last few minutes as well, and Leipzig made some really important saves.
Yeah, Everton are much improved from last year, so that's a really, really good point for Leicester, I think. Really, really good. So yeah,
especially when you consider they're running out games coming up.
Yeah, I think Liverpool will be fine, I think, but Reading, Tottenham, Brighton and Leicester, very, very close to call. I thought at the start of the season or at the beginning that Leicester were down and out, but the other teams just haven't in any way kicked on.
Oh,
the thing is, if Leicester get a few scrapes, like that game against Everton, managed to build up a few points, like if they beat Spurs tomorrow, is it tomorrow or Wednesday they're playing, then like that's going to be massive for the relegation.
Yeah, we need to talk about Spurs. I don't know.
We'll give you plenty of time.
Yeah, they don't look like the team they were last year at all.
I think it could be worth mentioning all our goalkeepers as well. 3 of them
they played
and started, and Megan Walsh was probably in with a shout until the last minute winner by Shaw as well. Thought she had a really good game, and it could have been so close to being an important point for Brighton as well. It was really good. Brosnan kept a clean sheet, but again, that was against Leicester, who attacking wise they're not really there. Maloney conceded 4, but still made some really important saves and could have saved the penalty as well. Got a hand to it, so like good to see them all starting anyway.
As long as they're playing, I mean, that's we haven't been able to say that for a while, so very, very good to see.
Well, Emma, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to the next slightly changed edition of Team of the Week where you just make up your own formation. Maybe we should get you to write a column. And
I'm going to send this new formation to Vera Pauw and see what she thinks.
Yeah, I'm sure she'd love a 2-5-4 formation. Yeah.
Take some of the heat off, Karen.
Please.
Thanks, Emma. Cheers. So now we turn our attention to the actual games, and it was a pretty big weekend in terms of movers and shakers in the league, but I feel like there's only one real place to start, and that is Chelsea 1, United 0. And Karen, I can see by your face already, for anyone who is listening to us on podcasts, Karen is grimacing.
Yeah, I'm grimacing because it was such an opportunity for United. It's probably the best I've seen them play against Chelsea. Possession wise, I thought they were good. I thought they were better in the middle of the park, but they didn't have the cutting edge and they don't have Sam Kerr. So that's like, in terms of shots, I think they were pretty even, but possession, it was mostly Man United. But it just goes to show that how efficient Chelsea are when they do get the chances. Yeah, just disappointing day for Man United, and I think they can feel a little bit aggrieved. I don't know what your take on it was in terms of the 2 penalties. For me, they were both penalties, so I think Mark Skinner probably, I could see some of his live reactions, and they were really, really entertaining. By the end, some of them he was just laughing at because he was just like,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh no, I thought they were absolutely penalties. And also I think he was very right in his comments after the game, and it's something that we keep getting from managers. You know, Emma Hayes has talked about it, Jonas Eidevall this season as well, that like he's not necessarily calling out the referee. He's like, we need to have better training in place for referees so stuff like this doesn't happen.
I mean, both of them were right in front of the lines person as well, and it didn't feel like the referee's view was overly obstructed. Now, I'm not someone who loves penalties being given for minimal contact, but whatever about the one in the air, you're kind of like, oh, ambiguous. Did she have control of the ball? But Nikita Parris was running through. Maybe Millie Bright would have come across and cleared it, but Buchanan took the legs. Anywhere else on the pitch, that's given. So.
And it's also the fact it's something we've seen Buchanan do a couple of times this season, and she's kind of got, and she gets away with it a lot of the time. And I feel like if you're a referee, you know, you're watching a player for that sort of thing, and the fact that she's just continually being allowed to do it says a lot about the state of the refereeing in the game. I mean, I wanted United to win this game. I'm very ready for the Chelsea dominance over the WSL to end, but it's like you say, they had those moments of brilliance. I mean, the Lauren James pass for the Sam Kerr goal, part of me felt like the United defense should have done a little bit better because her first touch was a tiny bit beyond her. And I feel like Mary Earps was kind of half in.
Yeah, I think Earps
about where she was going.
I think Earps made Kerr's mind up for her. The fact that she kind of half came, the only place that Kerr could have put it was over her head. And Letitia was putting enough pressure on it that maybe if Earps had stayed on her line, but again, it's easier said than done. And also Earps had made a great save from Kerr just before that. So like I say, Chelsea probably, they look like scoring more than Man United because they are more clinical probably in the box. Kerr missed another chance on the far right post. And I can't remember too many clear-cut United chances, a couple of snatches from Russo, but really good possession, but cutting edge wasn't the same.
Like, I think United had something like just over 60% possession for most of the game, and Chelsea had 6 attempts. They had 5, and they both had 3 on target. So, like,
and away from home, like that's a good performance from Man United. It's just a pity that maybe if one of the penalties had been given, they might have kicked on, but they just couldn't break down Chelsea then. And I thought both Chelsea centre backs, Wright and Buchanan, were solid.
And probably not the time Chelsea or United would have wanted to face Chelsea, you know, after that Conti Cup final defeat. I mean, Emma Hayes was fairly shook after the whole thing, and you could see the whole team were not impressed at the least. I was reading an interesting, I think it was Susie Rack in The Guardian, and she was talking about I think it was a preview to the match, and she was talking about Chelsea's back line and what do they do now, because obviously there's a lot of rumours that Pernilla Harder and Magda Eriksson are going to head off to Europe during the summer. It's like Barcelona, Lyon, PSG, loads of clubs being linked with them. And then you have the issue of like Kadisha Buchanan, who is, as we've said, she's a bit clumsy. She hasn't really adjusted to the league. She was supposed to kind of be their big stellar signing and hasn't really lived up to it. If you're Emma Hayes and there's these important games coming up, do you stick with Buchanan and take the risk of her keep messing up and like keep acclimatizing to her to the league in the hope that next season she's a bit more adjusted? Or do you stick with Eriksson and knowing that she might be gone in the summer, and then you also haven't given Buchanan the number or the minutes?
Oh yeah, it's a tough one. I'd probably stick with Buchanan. I mean, Eriksson probably is gone, and is she the dominant force that she was? I don't know. It sounds like they're going. So I think if Chelsea in the next couple of games just continue the form that they're in and they win them, I don't think there'll be a risk. I think they showed yesterday that up against a lot of pressure, they can handle it. That someone just needs to pull her aside and say, like, stand off your player a little bit more, stop giving away penalties, because she has all the attributes and she can bring like physicality, and she's young and she can run, which is what is needed, I think, in partnership with Millie Bright. I also thought Carter had a really good game yesterday, but yeah, I think I'd stick with Buchanan.
So Karen, you mentioned during the Team of the Week that this is something you wanted to talk about. Liverpool 2, Tottenham 1, and all of a sudden Tottenham are relegation contenders. They have that big game this week against Leicester, and you kind of feel a bit like Birmingham Leicester last season. You know, whoever gets the points in those sort of scraps are the ones that are probably going to stay up.
Yeah, and I just feel like it shouldn't be the case. They've got a top quality striker, Ayan, she's a good player as well. We obviously speak about Neville a good bit and her attributes, but it took them too long to start playing against Liverpool. I felt like they really let Liverpool grow into the game, and Liverpool were passing it around with ease through the middle, which is not something we've kind of said about them throughout the year. We kind of said maybe they're missing a little bit something in the middle, but there was so much space in front of the back four for Stengel to come in and receive the ball, and she was causing them all sorts of problems, and she was allowed to dribble across the box too often. And it was like Spurs only started playing towards the end of the first half and a little bit into the second half, and they're not brilliant at creating that many chances, but they started getting a little bit nice, is what I would say, because I thought last season they were really not nice. They're like scrappy, and they were able to dig out points against bigger teams maybe. And this was a really important game for them because they've allowed themselves to be dragged into a relegation battle by a team that we all thought would be in a relegation battle. And I just thought it was a really poor showing from them. I mean, Rachel Laws had to make a good save from England, but that was really the only bright spark that I saw anyway. I watched it just through highlights, but yeah, and Stengel could have had another one, but she could have wrapped it up. Like, could have been 3-4 for Liverpool. So I don't know what to say about Spurs. I just feel like it shouldn't be happening.
They just seem like a team who has always found it really hard to gel. And I know there's been a couple of seasons where they've started brightly and then tapered off, but this just feels like something completely different. I mean, this is their 9th defeat in a row, which is mad. Like, that's shocking. A crucial run of form. And they haven't won since they beat Brighton 8-0 in October. And to think that was like the last time they beat a team. And I'm pretty sure they scored more goals in that match than they'd already scored in the league before that. So they just seem to be very chaotic. And they're like, I quite like Rianne Skinner as a coach in general, but I don't know, you just have to wonder how she's holding on there, because something needs to change. And it feels like a mixture of players being played in strange positions, you know, like someone like Ashley Neville, who was absolutely balling at the start of the season and then was moved around the pitch and just hasn't really been the same since. You know, they have so much potential in that squad, but for whatever reason, it's just not being tapped into. Like, even Missy Bo-Kearns' goal, I was watching that, and the Tottenham defense, just like everyone just stood off her. It was like no one wanted to go near her.
In the box, I counted it. They had 6 players in the box, and Liverpool walked through. If there's 6 players in the box, everyone has a player. You can be touch tight and still have cover, and they just let them walk through. You're right. It was. I feel like there's an edge that's missing to them, and you do kind of look at the manager in these situations when you're on a run of form that it is as bad as this. Now, I wouldn't like to see them go down the road of what we saw at Everton and there being good turnovers, because I think consistency is good, but we expected Tottenham to kick on this year, and the opposite has kind of happened. Whereas Everton were kind of chaotic because they brought in so many new people last year, but you can kind of see them building a little bit more this year, and it feels the opposite, especially when they brought in someone like England and paid big money for her. You think, okay, this is a project now. There's room to build something here, and it just hasn't materialized yet. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what's missing. It looks like the scrappiness is gone from them, and maybe they just need to get back to basics on that.
But also, like, you brought up the England thing there, it would be mental if they, you know, had the English record fee for a player within the WSL and then got relegated. Like, where does that leave her? Where does that leave the team? You don't throw out that sort of money in a WSL club unless you're fairly convinced you're going to be, like, I mean, even the fact they were paying that money and they're not even within like a glance of the Champions League spots. It's just,
yeah, and like,
it's just it's England, chaos. That's the only word that you think about.
The likes of England and Iwabuchi didn't go there to be where they are in the table. Like there had to have been ambition on their part. So it is about gelling the team together, and it's not worked. So that's a dressing room job, because the talent, like those two alone can win you matches, but 9 games, like you said.
It's insane. Like they've 3 wins from 14 fixtures, and there's like 8 games left. I mean, it's not good for them. But also down the other end of the table, team we've mentioned a bit there in the conversation, Everton 0, Leicester 0. This is Everton's longest run without a goal in the league since 2018, when they went 5 games without scoring a goal. They haven't scored in 6 of their 14 fixtures. I don't know, a bit like you were saying with this Everton team, they're definitely growing into something, and maybe it is they just need a bit of experience, or someone who can be that, experienced shot taker up front. But
they could do with England.
Yeah.
Like swapsy there.
They could take her happily as well.
I mean, I'm not saying Everton have been brilliant this season, but we saw them last season. They were just so okay. Like you just didn't know what you were going to get from week to week, whereas I think they're a little bit more consistent in how they approach games now, and they have a bit more of a game plan, and they've got some good players as well. But again, struggling to score goals, and that's really the difference between the middle few teams there. We see Everton, West Ham, Liverpool, and then you go up the table and you're seeing, okay, Villa are ahead of these now because they're scoring in every game, because they've got 2 or 3 players who are very capable of putting the ball in the back of the net, in terms of Daly, and we saw Nobbs joining in yesterday. So that's what Everton need in order to break that duct. But fair play to Leicester as well. They've got a bit of grit about them. And of the bottom 4 teams, they've got the best record over the last 5 or 6 weeks. So it doesn't say much for the others, because they're still rooted on 7 points after 14 games. But
yeah. Well, it does make for interesting watching for the final few weeks, because we did say a couple of times that we thought Leicester were down and out, and there wasn't really going to be any competition for that relegation spot.
Should be.
Whereas now,
should be down and out. But when you look at the teams that are above them, those 3 teams that are above them, Brighton, Spurs and Reading, should be putting more points on the board. But
I would almost feel for them if they did go down now, just consider it, like if they kept up the run of form that they're on at the moment, just because I feel like of all the teams, they are on that upward trajectory, and they clearly have put in quite a lot of work to get there. Whereas, I don't know, a team like Spurs, it just seems a little bit more deserving at this stage. We have Man City 2, Brighton 1. Brighton in a state of disarray once again. After we finished recording last week, it was announced that Jens Schur was gone as their coach, and Amy Merricks was coming in as interim manager for a second time. They had 2 goals disallowed in this game, and then obviously they had Man City were very fortunate to have the incredible Bunny Shaw, the league's top scorer, City's top scorer in a single season now as well, and there still is those 8 games left to go.
I love her. I love her. She's unbelievable. Yeah. I loved her interview after. I love everything about her. I'd hate to mark her. I just love it. After every game, it's just like Bunny Shaw scores goals, and that's all you need to know. But as much as I love her, I also am so disappointed, because I think City are going to take the last Champions League spot. I think that loss to Chelsea could be the beginning of United having.
Do you think it's going to be a bit of a demise?
Not a demise. Like I just think that the other 3 teams I feel like you're not going to write off Arsenal. I like, you speak to Emma's still convinced that they are the best team in the league and they should be winning the league. I'm not going to argue with Emma Byrne even when she's not here.
I was going to say, like, every time she brings this up, I would
never argue with her. It doesn't matter. But City's run of form is probably the best of anyone's at the league at the moment, and they've got the most striker.
13 games. So.
Yeah, they have the most informed striker in the league. I love Hasegawa as well, and I feel like her link-up play with Shaw. I don't know, was the first goal, was it a shot or was it just an unbelievable pass into Bunny Shaw's path? I think it was probably a shot, but I'm going to say if it was a pass, it was spectacular.
The way the 2 of them were linking up was actually just such a pleasure to watch. It was like, there was one point where Bunny Shaw like backheeled the ball to her, and she didn't even like turn around. It was just like she knew the space Hasegawa was running into, and she was right there for it. And even like Bunny Shaw, there was one stage they didn't get a goal from it, but they got a shot off, and one stage she was over on the right hand side, and then the next minute she was over on the left hand side, and then she passed the ball into the middle, and then all of a sudden she was back in the middle of everything again. And I was like, this gal is literally everywhere. So it's not just the fact that she is the top scorer in the league and is an amazing striker, she's also just like an absolute worker on the pitch, and
she just comes alive. She comes alive in the box, so it's proper striker's instinct that just is so hard to come by. And yeah, she's firing off cylinders. So like you don't see Chelsea slipping up at this point. I think Man City are going to continue to improve. Like yesterday could have been a banana skin for them. I know it was only 2-1, but I felt like they were going to score. If they needed to score more, they could have. I thought that Walsh pulled off a couple of very good saves. I think one was from Kelly, really good, and Shaw had a couple maybe straight at her, but they still had to be saved. So I mean,
it'll be interesting for City. They're run on the 26th of March. They're playing Chelsea, and then the 2nd of April they're playing Arsenal. So that's a relatively tough run for them. And then Arsenal are playing United the week after they play City. So actually, both sides.
Yeah, I mean that week is probably gonna decide it.
And then you also have United City Manchester Derby on the second last day of the season. So that's probably the one that's gonna go a long way to deciding things.
It's very hard to call. It's just that because City are on such a run of form, I just see them getting a Champions League space. So I'd love it. Like realistically, if this table stayed the way it is, I'd be happy. I know you wouldn't be happy because Arsenal are currently sitting in 4th, but they have a game.
Sure, it's fine because we're going to win the Champions League anyways.
All right, okay. Sure. But that works out for everyone. Let's just go with that. Everyone should have an agreement that that's what happens.
Speaking of Arsenal winning the Champions League is back next week for the WSL teams. But Arsenal 4, Reading 0. Pretty comprehensive performance by Arsenal. Leah Williamson playing in midfield. Annabelle said it was definitely her best match I have ever seen her play there. She was very, very good. And it caps off like a relatively successful 8-day stretch. They've played 3 times. They've only conceded 1 goal, scored 9. So I think that Conti Cup final was definitely the lift this team needed. And I also think the fact that Jonas Eidevall has gone back to playing Black Stenius in the role that she was playing before with Miedema has massively helped the team.
Yeah, and like she still missed a couple of chances, but she's getting in the position. So again, like you'd hope that the more that she's getting in those positions, that they'll start to come off and she can be that player that they need her to be in there. She's making great runs, like you say, she's making great runs. And Arsenal have the people in midfield, even Williamson coming in, but little, they're able to pick out those runs and get her in behind. And when you've got Ford and Manham, the third man runs that they make are so hard to mark. And Reading couldn't stop them. They were nowhere near them. Horrible conditions again for a game, but yeah, Arsenal were impressive. Reading were not.
Yeah, I don't know how much it actually says into Arsenal's form, apart from the fact that it was just nice seeing players
3 games in a week.
Ways.
Yeah. 3 games in a week to have an easy game like that. It's nice to just get it done. It's one of those ones that they just need to get done.
And then finally, West Ham 1, Aston Villa 2. Villa incredibly clinical. They had 2 shots on target and 2 goals, and that's all they needed. But yeah, then they continued their unbeaten in the league in 2023. So as we were saying earlier, they bought well during the transfer window, and they're.
I mean, Daly's strike was the goal of the weekend, really. But it was West Ham's fault. They played themselves into trouble unnecessarily, and she didn't need a second-sided goal. Snapshot, absolutely pinged it in. And again, a really well-worked goal for Jordan Nobbs's goal. Her making that third man run into the box, getting on the end of it. Really good. West Ham, they kept pushing, but I think Villa have just that a little bit.
They just had, I was going to say, yeah, that little bit of quality that just kind of took them. I'm interested to see. I really think that give that Villa team like the summer, maybe add 1 or 2 more players, and they could really be interesting next season in terms of pushing top 3 or 4 teams.
Totally agree. And that's why I really want Man United to get Champions League so that they don't lose players. And then Villa, who are obviously building something, will be a really attractive club for people as well. So, yeah, nervous times.
Well, Karen, thank you very much for all your excellent analysis. And we shall be back with our full cohort the next podcast. It's FA Cup this weekend. There's no WSL. So we'll bring a treat to your ears either way.
The COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.